this week's Sunday sermon. I am here to help you. I'm an intuitive transformational healer and rapid ascension coach. And I'm really so grateful and so honored to have all of you who watch these videos, who I know have told me privately that you feel inspired by them, that they've been a help to you. Thank you. Thank you. It means the world. From my heart, it means so much. Part of my gift, part of why I'm here, part of my mission is to be helpful in whatever way I can, to be a help and a support to all of you in this world, on this beautiful planet. I'll show you where I am right now. I'm in Somerset, southwest England, basically. And I'll just show you, there's this really beautiful area I'm in today. It's nice and sunny. And it's a gorgeous day. And it's interesting because this is actually my second time recording this. I normally, when I do the Sunday sermon, when I do all my videos, actually, it's a one-shot deal. This is the only time I've actually re-recorded it. I actually first recorded the Sunday sermon a couple days ago, and I felt very guided to re-record it today and to delete the previous one. Part of why I felt guided to re-record it is that I have had a lot of shifting happening for me personally in the past couple of days. And it ties into what I feel guided to share here with and for all of you. What the previous one was about, and what I'll touch briefly on, and move on to what else I feel guided to share with it, was about the news about Harvey Weinstein. For those who may or may not be aware, Hollywood mogul, high level exec, a producer in Hollywood with loads of power. He's been a very powerful man for decades, at least 30 years, if not more. I think when I was reading an article, it said something about 1979 being one of the big movies they did. So at least since then. And the news that came about was, there are two reports, two articles, one in the New York Times, one in the New Yorker. And both of them, one of them, I think the one in the New Yorker, also happens to be by a man named Ronan Farrow, who's the son of Mia Farrow, a really famous actress, for those who may or may not know. And the New York Times article was co-written by two women. And I apologize, I will do what I can. I'll put the link to the articles below this video so you can read up if you're interested. One of the women, I believe her name was Jodie Cantor, if I'm remembering correctly. And in both articles detailing what has turned out to be an open secret, something a lot of women knew, spoke about. Men had heard rumors as well, but it seems to be a little bit of a generational thing, perhaps, in that the majority of those who knew about his behavior, essentially what it is he was preying upon young actresses, very predatory type behavior, sexual advances, using and abusing his power in Hollywood, and playing that out, actually, for those who, where the situation didn't go the way that he wanted it. There have been cases where he quite obviously sought to discredit them, and in some cases did ruin careers. He had that kind of power, and and that's part of why all of this went on so long. He was a very powerful man, and people knew that. And so it ties into a wider issue and a bigger state of the world, and that's part of what has come to my realization in the past couple of days with a lot of energy healing and clearing I've been doing for myself and my own soul history, I guess you could say, her story. I've been diving into my Akashic records, which is where your soul records are kept, soul books for each and every one of us, and it keeps a record of everything that our soul has gone through at any point in time, and past lives, future lives, parallel lives, our current lifetime, and from the genesis of our soul, the beginning of our soul, to where we are infinite is how these things go. Infinite timeline. So I've been doing a lot of work in that, and that's also something I can, part of what I do to help my clients as well. We look at their soul lessons and how does it apply for the lifetime that they're currently in. And there's a lot of deep healing that goes on, and clearing of records and releasing of things, so that your soul knows it's okay to let certain things go if they're not benefiting you any longer. Healing of trauma, etc. That's part of what I've been doing for me. For me, it dates back to really dates to the home planet I came from, but what I've been focusing on and what's been coming up for healing the past couple of days with this story from Harvey Weinstein and so on about anyway, I won't get into it because I've said what I need to say on that bit and for this video, and you have the article links, so that will be okay. But what I've been diving into for me has had to do with my soul's healing and things that happened when my soul was in and on Atlantis and went from Atlantis to ancient Egypt. Long story short, there was another soul who I've realized previously that other soul and we've shared thousands of lifetimes together. There's been a lot of soul work back and forth, actually, for both of us, and what happened in Atlantis and then went on to ancient Egypt was that his soul at that point was, as described by a woman, my former teacher of mine, who she was also, her soul was there at the time also. She's also part of the soul family group. As she described it, he was obsessed with me. She said he was obsessed. Meaning sexually obsessed and romantically obsessed, and I was not interested. I just wasn't interested. He wasn't my type for lots of reasons, and I ended up being married to I don't think we had like what we call a marriage in terms, like it wasn't like a formal wedding like we do now in modern times, but we lived as husband and wife, and our work was very intertwined as well. And my relationship with that man began, who became my husband, began in Atlantis. So, but even before that, I wasn't interested in this other soul in that way at all. I just wasn't. And what transpired was a lot of what women still go through today, and part of what we're seeing come out in these stories of what women went through in their dealings with Harvey Weinstein, which is male who, how do I even say this? There's so much coming to me, but a male who is romantically rejected, sexually rebuffed, and who doesn't want to take no for an answer. Just really doesn't like that. And it turns into this power struggle and this power game of him trying to do whatever the hell he can, whatever he can possibly think of, and exerting, his physicality, his superior strength, and, not superior, his greater amount of strength, that's a better way to put it, physically and sometimes mentally as well, abusing positions of power This other soul, he was a little bit older than me in those lifetimes as well. So there was that element. I was a bit younger. And, and that's what happened to these women. And it's a story as old as time, you could say. This seeking of male dominance over women and seeking to exert their dominance sexually. Some of it ties into hormonal stuff. If you look at it, human beings, when we are mammals, just like the rest of the mammal kingdom. Males tend to want to spread their seed biologically. There's this it's this weird mix of our modern sensibilities, our logical brain aspects, tying into these very prehistoric and primal instincts. And part of what we're seeing is an incredible example of that. And that is something that has been going on for thousands of years, for at least a millennia, longer than that though, lots longer. And that also falls under the previous energetic field our world was in, our Mother Earth planet was in, which for a long time, dating from around Atlantis onwards, some of you watching, you may have differing memories on the exact timing. For me, it feels around the end of Atlantis onwards. It was so let me put it this way. From kind of the middle period of Atlantis, this primarily patriarchal masculine energy started to seep in, started to become more of Earth's orbit, started to seep into more of Earth's atmosphere. And those of us living here, a part of this world, on this planet, those souls who were there, we began experiencing more of that primarily masculine energy seeping into our cells, into the cores of our being. And that is a part of what we're coming up to the end of now. Something I've talked about in quite a few of my previous videos is that, for those of you who have watched a few, you'll recognize this, I'm sure, that, what's happening now, and I sense, again, the timing, for some of you watching, it may differ a little bit from what I'm picking up. It started around 2011-ish, maybe 2009, I'm hearing right now. But Mother Earth has been moving more into a feminine orbit, bringing in more feminine energies, femininity and femaleness. And that has begun seeping into many of our cells, those of us living here, whoever we are, whatever our background, whatever area of the world we live in, whether we're a man or woman, young, old, whether we're human or not. The animal kingdom, it's seeping in everywhere, in our plants, our trees, everywhere. This beginning of what is called the new earth, it's also the divine feminine is coming in. And it's needed, it's necessary. We've had, again, as I said a little bit earlier, we've had thousands of years of predominantly male energy. And it's something, if we were here during those times, our souls chose to live during those times, we were a part of it. You could see it a little bit like a grand experiment. I mean, that's part of why we're all here. Anyway, we're here to experience life. That's, it gets into the core base reasons for why each of us decided to incarnate as a soul in the first place. Our souls made that decision. We are part of the collective whole. So, we came down from the collective consciousness, but also we have our individuality. And it's this duality, which is sort of the ever-present story of existence, isn't it? This feeling of separateness, and yet seeking for wholeness, and knowing deep in ourselves and in our souls that there is this wholeness there, and seeking and trying to figure out how can we recreate, and how can we find that wholeness within ourselves and within our lives now in real, practical, everyday terms. So we've had all of that, right? So our souls, if we chose to incarnate at all, and especially, if we're here on earth, well, we chose to come to earth for a reason. And part of that is, there are many, many, many reasons for each of us, but part of that is because our souls wanted to experience what living here in the predominantly male energy, and if we were there previously, before the male energy came in, our souls wanted to experience that shift then as well. And what was that like? And how did that reflect and affect our lives, our everyday lives? And what sort of patterns come up? What sort of life lessons, what sort of experiences do we have when we're in that, whether we were there when it was predominantly feminine energy and then shifted into masculine, or whether we came in when it was masculine and now being here as a part of this shifting now. Everything we're experiencing, everything we're seeing in the world, the news stories, with Harvey Weinstein, amongst many others in the UK, Jimmy Savile was a big example of this. In his case, it was very, very young children who he preyed upon. Literally, it's predatory type behavior. That's what's happening when people do this, whether they're a man or a woman. They're literally preying. It's animal, very base core animal type behavior, and that part of their brain just hasn't evolved past that point yet. It doesn't mean they won't, but some sort of trigger has, some sort of light hasn't been turned on for them quite yet. And we will be seeing more and more examples of this. We will be. I don't want to lie. There's no point in lying. But it's not meant to scare. The fact is that part of this shifting into the divine feminine means that more of what is needed and necessary for us to heal and to be able to truly move into the divine feminine is going to come up. Stuff that has been laying underneath the surface, things that have been going on, whether it's been a year, 5 years, decades, or hundreds of years, things that need to stop happening, things that, types of behavior, belief systems, ways of thought that just are not helpful to us individually as well as in this collective whole. All of that stuff is going to keep coming up, and it's coming up for a reason. It's coming up for a reason, and it's not something to be scared of. No, it's just the reality of it. We are going to see more stories. More stuff is going to come out, and it's necessary. It's necessary for each of us because we need that healing. We deserve this healing. And, the more that we heal, first comes, if I back up a bit, first comes recognition that there's a problem. You have to identify that there's a problem in the first place. And in order to identify that there's a problem, something that needs to be fixed or shifted, it needs to come up in awareness. People need to be made aware of it. Spirits, souls, animals need to be aware that this previous way of being just is not helpful and it needs to change. So that happens first. Then from there comes a state of, okay, we are where we are. We don't like how this feels. What can we do to change it? And from there comes in the seeking of help, as and if needed, the seeking of support, the receiving of healing for each of us individually, as well as a collective whole, in conjunction with looking at what can we do to make sure that doesn't happen again. And the healing is a big part of that, because as we heal, we release that which we no longer need. We do see things differently. And it allows us to let go of patterns that could be going on for millennia. It could be generational patterns in our own family. It could be things that our soul has been clinging on to. Either punishments or, attacking behavior that just isn't necessary anymore and is actually blocking our own advancement, and our own evolvement and growth as a soul. So that can happen. And as we do all of these things individually, it adds to the collective whole. Each of our healing as an individual being does have a beautiful, and this is a gorgeous part of how our world and universe works. Whatever we do will be seen in the world around us, and vice versa. Whatever's going on in the world around us can and does have a direct reflection for what we may be feeling inside. The news about Harvey Weinstein really touched me, and it made me realize, by the strength of my feeling, the strength of my emotions, that there was still a bit left. There was another layer coming up for me to heal, from that lifetime I had, when I was Hathorg, from Atlantis to Egypt. And part of it for me is being seen. There was a lot of fear of visibility. There was fear of my own power, my own strength. There was fear energy surrounding my sexuality and my womanness. And I've done a lot of healing on that for myself. In my entire current lifetime, there's been a lot of healing throughout my life, and every layer brings me closer to my greater whole, brings me closer to balancing and to combining for me the necessary and missing elements that had been there, the fractured aspects of myself. Because whenever, another thing to remember, or and I hope it helps, is that whenever we go through any sort of trauma or pain, literally pieces of our soul breaks off, because that it ties into the fight or flight response. You either fight it or you flee. And my soul, in this lifetime as well as many others, evolved a very strong attribute in fleeing, getting the hell out of there. Just go, escape, right? And if I couldn't escape physically, then escaping with my mind, escaping with my energy, and breaking apart aspects of myself that didn't want to look at and wasn't prepared to deal with what was happening in that present moment in time. That's a really normal response. And it's something that many of us do without even realizing. Again, it ties into the fight or flight response. And when you have so many of us who have experienced in our soul's lifetime, and again, whether it's this current life or any other lifetime, so many of our souls have, and it's true, you look through history, I mean, goodness, there's been a lot, there's been a hell of a lot, right, of war, conflict, things like rape, incest, forced pregnancy, forced early marriages. It's still happening in areas of the world. I mean, a lot of this stuff is still happening. And it's coming, all of this is coming up, and a lot of us are realizing these patterns, whether they're for our soul individually or in our families, for a reason, for a purpose, because it's time for us to heal. It's time for each of us. It's time for me. It's time for you. It's time for all of us in the world to heal. We need to heal from and with the overwhelmingly masculine energy that our world has been in, Mother Earth, as a planet, and each of us living in here, and growing and evolving here, that we have been experiencing. And we need to heal from the traumatic aspects of the male energy, because male energy is not bad in and of itself. Masculine energy can be really, really helpful. It's part of what helps us to create and to move forward and to create change and to birth forth projects. Um, Birthing is, can be masculine and feminine depending on what we're looking at, but essentially masculine energy is not bad in and of itself, just like men are not bad in and of themselves. It's just these aspects that it's time to be updated, that it's time for each of us to admit to ourselves and to allow to be healed so that they can evolve, so that they can grow and they can adapt and they can change for where we are now as opposed to where we once were. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening, and the healing you may experience, you may be having things to do with your feminine that need healing. For me, my healing was definitely aspects of my feminine energy that had been scarred and traumatized that needed healing. And aspects of the feminine healing I've been doing for myself the past couple days have coincided with a few of the lifetimes I had as men. I've had a few male lifetimes. I've had more female, more women. I've had some men in my lifetimes, or I've been men in some of my lifetimes. That's a better way to put it. For what I mean, I'm sure I had loads of men in various lifetimes. But anyway, getting back on point. For me, it was healing aspects of my sexuality that can be tied into whether I was a man or a woman, because sexuality is sexuality however we express it, however it comes out. The energy is of sensuality, of sexuality, and that expression. And that was part of what needed, for that next layer to come up for healing. And that's what we're seeing in the world today, so many of us. And and it's interesting as well, because all of this, again, it also brings up a lot of different aspects such as power and power dynamics between men and women, gender differences, and whether it's in the bedroom or, as they say, in the boardroom, and whether it's in a family atmosphere such as parents with their children, let's say, whether it's dynamics between a parent and a child. Let's say it's between friends. There's a lot of stuff that this news about Harvey Weinstein and others brings up. And again, it's these dynamics that are coming up for healing, coming up for change. And it's time for change for each and every one of us, for us all. We need it. We need it. We deserve it. And Mother Earth does as well. And she is shifting. She is bringing us with her. She's like a very gentle, loving, persistent tug, pulling us. The image that comes to me is of, two boats connected by a rope. And she is the leading boat. She's the one that has the motor and is pulling us along. We've got paddles. And she's pulling us along to where we need to be. So I hope this is giving you a lot of food for thought. I hope it's helping. I hope it brings up some, maybe some good conversation topics, discussion topics, and perhaps areas for you in your own life, in your own world, that it's, time for you to heal and to look at too. Again, we're going to be seeing more of these types of stories, whether it's to do with sexual dynamics or anything else. We're going to be seeing more stories, more things come to light that need and deserve our change, because it's time. It's time. And it's time for me, it's time for you, it's time for all of us and our world. I'm sending you so much love, everyone. If there's a space and place within you that you're ready to look at, that you would like to heal, that you'd like support in, please get in touch. Please, you never need to do anything alone. Goodness knows I've received so much help and support along my journey. And it's enabled me to be where I'm at now, to be doing what I am now in the world, and to be able to be here to help you to have found my purpose. And, you know, none of us is in this world or life alone. We are all connected, as are you. I'm sending you so much love, always. All the best to you. Take care, sweethearts, and enjoy your Sunday. Mwah! Bye.